Good morning, Richard. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you for joining us on Right for the Role, the podcast. You know, you were born in March of 1947, and I
Yes.
was born something like 7 weeks later, towards the end of April in 1947.
Are
And
you an Aries or Taurus?
Taurus, scratch me
Mm.
behind the ear and give me a glass of red wine, sit me in front of the fireplace, and I'm a happy man. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might think that fellas who have gotten to this stage of our lives might be slowing down or sitting on the back porch and smoking a corncob pipe. But you are a remarkable example of not that. And I am to a slightly lesser extent. I mean, you're starring in a television show for Tyler Perry on Netflix right now. You
I
have
am.
recently released a book about acting, which is also about life. And you will do a Substack like almost every 15 minutes, it seems. Uh, and you have an acting academy, and you are a well-respected teacher in the Los Angeles area, and all of that is still going on. I am directing a play that I've been working on with a young playwright, and I, of course, now have this podcast. And I think we're an example of resilience and the fact that it doesn't come to some neat little end at a certain stage.
No, not at all. And interestingly enough, our journey started with you as a director because you directed me in a play called Cakewalk at the
Yeah,
Mark Taper Forum. I don't even remember what year it was, but
it
it
was
was,
something like 1981, maybe.
I think it was around 1981. Yes. And I never will forget, the experience and the play and what it was about, and also Gordon Davidson, lovely Gordon Davidson, if you when you auditioned for Gordon Davidson, you couldn't take it personal that he fell asleep.
He fell asleep at opening night on almost every show I was ever.
Every show,
Yeah,
every show,
yeah, with his
yeah,
wife sitting in that chair right in the middle of everything.
right in the
What do
middle, yeah, because he had what was that sleeping
Sleep
n-
apnea or narcolepsy or something.
narcolepsy. I think he
Yeah,
had narcolepsy,
yeah.
and so it's like,
Who
yeah,
was the
but
casting director at the Taper when we worked together?
think I want to say Lieberman,
Amy?
somebody, Amy Lieberman, I
Yeah,
think.
she's a dear friend to this day. I adore
Yeah,
her. And
yeah,
her not husband of a long time is a guy called Billy Valentine, who's a fabulous singer, a jazz singer. Uh,
right.
what do you remember about the audition, if anything, for Cakewalk?
I didn't audition for that.
Oh, they offered it to you and I said yes?
Yes, yes, they offered because Gordon had seen plenty of my work. Gordon saw me in Streamers
Ah,
and at the Westwood Playhouse, and that was something that launched my career really. Because before
uh-huh.
that, it was like, um, who is Richard Lawson? And
And now it's get me a Richard Lawson type.
well, if it's come to that, I give my hand to the gods and say thank you, for the time and the legacy.
Well,
You know,
yeah, and you've created such an amazing career. It's it's a miracle, really, that we did it for as long as we did it, and in such a variety of ways. And I remember you came into my office for some television show years after that, and you made a point to tell my bosses that I was a good director, and
it
I
was
they
for it was for ER.
oh, well, there you go. Well, they teased me about it for the next decade.
And the funny thing is when I said it, it was almost like the subtext was, your subtext was like, what? No, not in here.
Well, you know that the play that you referenced, Cakewalk, went on to be a mini series on one of the networks back in the day when they did that. Jack Lemmon played the governor, and then
Oh,
later it
really?
became a gigantic hit on Broadway, and it was called Parade, which and
Wow.
it was a musical, which is an odd idea, a
Wow.
musical about anti-Semitism and racism.
Wow.
But
You know,
yeah,
it was an interesting thing in an education in terms of how the name came about and the circumstances in
yeah,
which the cakewalk came about.
yeah,
And at the time, or during the time of slavery, in terms of the enslaved people, the headmaster, the master of the house, would sit with his family on the veranda and have the
yeah,
slaves parade in front of him
yeah,
in their Sunday go to meetings. And
yeah.
the most attractive couple would take the cake, would get a cake. And
Oh
hence
my,
the cakewalk was born. And most of the attractive couples were the mixed couples, half white, half black,
yeah,
uh,
the children of rape.
the children of rape, yes. And then the darker skinned enslaved people, in order to curry favor with the slave master, figured in order to get that attention, they would create this dance.
Right,
And the dance was a prancing kind of dance, hence called the cakewalk.
exactly.
And then they started to get the attention. So the expression, most people don't even know where expressions come from. But when somebody says, "Yeah, man, that was a cakewalk,"
Yeah. Yeah, because what it now means is that it was easy, but
yeah, it was easy, right?
it sure as hell wasn't easy. It's interesting. There's a survivor of concentration camps who opened a delicatessen in Los Angeles years ago. It was called High's Deli. It was in the Pico area,
I remember Highs.
and that guy was a fabulous soccer player, and
Oh,
he and other soccer players would entertain the Nazi brass in the camps with a ball, and they would do fancy kicks and back and forth, and it was sort of the Jewish cakewalk. I don't know what the reward was, but it was kind of a way to uh, you know it, it's a disgusting habit that the haves have and that the have-nots have to participate in.
it's very, if we look at the history of the haves and the have-nots in terms of what one has to do in order to ward off trauma and
Yeah.
ill treatment and stuff like that, it's amazing, because out of that, many, many things have been born in order to avoid disaster or for being killed and beaten.
To
One
create
of them
survival. I mean,
to create
I
survival.
mean, the enslaved people had to work so hard in the fields and such, but not only that, they had to work equally hard to survive. And
Right.
so did the European Jews.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much to cover with you because you're such a fascinating guy that I'd like to switch gears a little bit with you,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Let's go.
What is can you tell us a little bit about where your nerve to have a creative life originated, and how I think one of the remarkable things about you is that you've maintained this remarkable level of creativity and you have managed to have that kind of creativity evolve as you've evolved. And can you talk a little bit about that? I know it's personal, but we're
It's
old
it's
friends.
not personal at all. It's
Well,
just
because
part
I
of,
think some of your creativity comes, as it does for lots of us, from pain.
as does all the qualities that we have in life. It's through pain and trauma and through love, hopefully, in some cases, mentorship in some cases. Mentorship, I had none. Love, I did, but I didn't quite understand it at the time because my mother worked 16 hours a day for 16 years. And so I was constantly moved around from one year early on, before junior high school. Before that, I went from Oakland to Riverside, to Oakland to Riverside, to Riverside to my aunt's house, Oakland, my mother's house. So my mother's house, I was like surrogate father, surrogate husband. In Riverside, I was a boy. I was a little boy playing baseball and everything else. At Oakland, I was a man. I had to grow up. And, I mean, that helped to shape me in terms of principle, in terms of empathy, in terms of understanding, support, structure, leadership. And then as I got older, I went to college. I was a football player. And then I dropped out of college to go into business. I was going to drop out for a few months, start my furniture moving business and go back in. But I got drafted and I went to Vietnam for a year.
What was your lottery number? Do you remember?
I don't know my lottery number, but
I was fortunate. Mine was in the 250s or something.
Yeah.
And then,
well, at
and
that
then and then I managed to get arrested for possession of marijuana, and my physical was canceled.
Yeah, I remember my physical. I tried to lie every way I could. I tried to act like I was blind. Now, I did wear glasses, but I tried to act like I was blind. I said, nah, not going to work. I went in and I became a medic. And so that was a pretty particular experience as a medic, because as a medic, I'm the only one who's touching people. Hey, let me see that. Let me see that hand. Let me see that. Let me take a look at that. Open your mouth, And so in that closeness, I became like the shrink, the therapist, the whatever. Hey, doc, can I talk to you for a minute? Oh, yeah. And they would talk about the wife being at home and being unfaithful and blah, 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 blah. So I learned my empathetic side had to be real clear. Anyway, so I got out of the service early, went to Vietnam, had a Purple Heart, got out early, 3 months to go to college. And while I was in college, I was introduced to acting via competitional speech, which I became the state champion, and undefeated. And as of that, the drama coach, Glenn DeBose, said, hey, I would like for you to think about doing this musical called Golden Boy. I'd never sang, danced, and acted. The only in front of an audience was as a forensics competitional speech. So I did Golden Boy. And from that, I got in No Place to Be Somebody in San Francisco, getting a national company. And then I came to Hollywood. And when I got to Hollywood, I went on my first audition. And when I read the script, I said, oh, I'm perfect for this lead character, right? And I went in the audition. It was like, oh, no. Your part was this part. Yeah. But that was like number 75 on the call sheet.
Yes, exactly.
And then I really got clear real soon that Hollywood does not see me as I see myself. And so I had to create it. If I wanted it, I would have to go get it. So that put me on owning and creating and writing and producing my own plays, etc. And it also put me on my purpose. Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. When I was doing the musical, in the middle of the final song on the closing night on my birthday, I had a revelation, an epiphany, that this is what I was put on this earth to do. From that moment to this moment, I have been on vacation because I have been really clear about what my North Star is. And so therefore, everything between then and now, there have been no stops. Even through the 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 no's, they were never stops. They were only reroutes.
Yeah.
Because my GPS was really clear.
Yeah, I completely get that. And, it's interesting because my podcast and my memoir are called Right for the Role. And obviously that it's kind of a reference to you guys, actors wanting to be right for the role. But it's really much more about self-discovery and the journey of finding who you are as
Yes.
you evolve and change and grow. And and
Yes.
and uh, and if you are on that journey and are honest with yourself and empathetic towards others, but also towards yourself, you can evolve with yourself.
Right.
And clearly, you have done that. Um, I want to go back to your days as a medic. I did not go to Vietnam, but I did go to Vietnam in one sense because I was the casting director on the great show China Beach, and
Hmm.
Dana Delaney, who I interviewed last week and who will be in this season of Right for the Role, the podcast, played a nurse who had that same confessional relationship with young boys 10,000 miles away from home that you just described. So
Hmm.
that resonates with me so completely, that your role was partly medical, but it was greatly uh, loving, because some of those boys were dying,
Yeah.
and you had to help them make that transition. And it's much easier to stitch up somebody's wound than it is to help them cross over. And I so admire that.
Yeah. I was looking, I have such a different relationship to death than most people I know. Because in Vietnam, I was associated with death on so many levels and regularly. I mean, one day we bulldozed 150 bodies into a
Yeah,
mass grave. And most of those people, there was interaction between own American soldiers and the Vietnamese people, soldiers, whether they were Viet Cong or whether they were
yeah,
villagers that were at effect to it. And the things that really you can't unsee or experience, like
right,
one woman who had a bullet to her abdomen right above her navel, and she was 9 months pregnant,
yeah,
and there was no exit wound. And so I know that if it was an M16, which it was, bullet, that the bullet turns over and it turns everything into mush.
yeah.
And this baby was dead inside of her body. And it was like, I couldn't help her.
No,
And so what do you do? So what, and how do you get on the other side of that? And how does that turn into a positive and doesn't, where it's not in front of you, so the amount of deaths over there, over here, I was in the drug program, ran the drug program, the people who overdosed and died, and et cetera, that my relationship to death is really different. So in the sense of appreciating on a moment to moment, day to day basis, that, that there are no guarantees
no,
for anything. And you have to live your life as if it were your last, because you don't know what that dash is
no,
between,
absolutely.
you know, born day and death day, that dash. Well, from today till that time, that what am I doing with this dash? Because interestingly enough, time is the only account that you don't know what the balance is.
Yeah,
So you better make the most of it.
yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, I'm sure it hasn't been easy, but the fact that you have turned those experiences into an opportunity to grow and change and evolve is a remarkable achievement. And I mean, I think we said earlier that a lot of growth and change comes from painful experiences, and
Yeah.
but it's on us to pop the clutch and move forward with positivity and empathy and love, and it's fantastic. I'm again, because I don't want to keep us here for the rest of our lives, no matter how long that is. I'd like to switch to your book. You and I have in common lots of things, and one of them is the wonderful Trudy Roth. She helped me write my book. without her, there would be no Right for the Roll of the Book or Right for the Roll of the Podcast. And tell us a little bit about what your book is about. I know you have maybe a second book in the works as well, but
Yes.
so now here in your not dotage, we're adding author to the list of mentor, teacher, actor, soldier, medic, husband, father. I could go on, but I want to keep this brief. Can you speak to
Yeah.
that?
Well, let me speak about Trudy. First of all, Trudy is amazing and really helped me to push through the book, to get it done, the first one. And I'm really grateful for her knowledge and experience as a person who understands writing and also pushing people forward and helping them to find the spine of it.
Yeah, she kept
And
saying to me when we were working on my memoir, your stories are good and you're funny and smart and blah, 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 but you got to make it more personal. You got to make it be truthful. And I'm
yeah,
kind of a private person, and so I was reluctant, but she gently uh, punched me in the mouth, and I did
yeah,
what she said.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. And unlike you, I'm not. Most people accuse me of not being personal enough. That I put. I'm just too open and too. I'm too TOO. But yeah, the first book really kind of wrote itself to a certain degree. At least all the information was there because I recorded every class that I've ever taught
Oh, wow.
on when I got into my own studio. When I was at Milton's place I started teaching in 1980
And that's
as
Milton Katselas, the famous
yeah,
acting teacher here in Los Angeles for
yeah,
our listeners and viewers.
yeah, and I was his protege.
Yeah.
And one of the dearest and closest and most important things anyone has ever said to me was that Milton wrote into a book that it is because of you that I believe in my teaching. I
Wow.
wish we would work together again and again and then again. You are
Wow.
one of the most courageous, risky artists, right? And I get emotional thinking about that because, first of all, he was one of the greatest teachers. And secondly, as a protege of his and having been directed by him, he directed me in Streamers. And at some point, I want to tell you a really interesting story about how I actually got that job. But
Good.
the stories were a series of recordings and things that I would say, and I had my own language. They call it the Lawsonary, because I would make up the words that best fit what it was that we were doing. And my precepts, dreams don't have expiration dates. Do it now. Never let your expectations get higher than your gratitude. Do your best, forget the rest, etc., etc. And all of these things are just things that help us stay on the path and to not be stopped and to overcome, adversities and to have the courage to keep going. And so it was like I needed to put this in a book. And yes, the acting is in there as well in terms of all the proponents of acting. But what I realized is that acting, I can teach someone how to be a good actor. But if they don't know how to have a career, that's going to be their downfall.
Yeah,
If they don't
Richard,
know,
let me interrupt you for just a second to say that's my pet peeve about all of the important acting programs in the universities and colleges around the country is that they don't prepare their students for life in the professional world. And that is a wholly separate component
holy
of the
separate.
possibility of success.
Right. And
Please
hence,
go on.
therefore, for me, here's the equation that I've come up with. This is the formula. Plan A plus plan B equals C, which is career. Plan A is the career I create. That's the career where I'm inventing my own stuff. I'm writing, I'm directing, I'm producing, I am doing a play, and I'm creating a one-man show, and creating a podcast, and I'm doing all of those things and learning how to monetize that. Plan B is Hollywood. Going on auditions, knowing how to audition, knowing how to handle relationships with your agents and managers, knowing how to deal, being able to separate who I am from what I do, so that when Richard Lawson gets reviewed negative, has a bad review, when casting directors say, nah, he's not right, he's this and that, that I, Richard Lawson, the person, don't take the reviews about Richard Lawson, the creator actor, and it filters to me, because it's two separate things, and I have to create and separate who I am from what I do. I have to be clear about plan A and plan B in order to have a fully realized C, career. And so in my teaching, in my school, I have a hybrid school where half the people I could asses in seats, and then people virtually. And we alternate. One week, the first week of the month is plan A, then plan B second, plan A, plan B. So we alternate in terms of what you're creating and then what you have to prepare for.
Yeah.
And then because of the virtual class, I have people coming in from Dubai, France, Canada, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, all over.
Yeah.
And those two worlds, virtual and live, that we can create a 360-degree career.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I always try to say to young actors that even if you don't get the job, you got the audition, and that's already a win. And the rejection it can be a portal to growth and change, and can kick you forward sometimes more than if you got the job.
Totally.
Because as we've said, that sometimes those difficult reassessments that you have to make as an artist are the things that push you forward and make you really grow.
Yeah. Let me just say one quick thing that I saw on IG the other day. This girl was on IG, and she was live, and she was sniffling, and she says, I just don't, I can't handle it anymore. I'm just so sad. She says, I lost another job, and it got down to me and another actress. And, she says, I don't get it. Why am I always second? I'm always it's between me and another girl, and the other girl gets it. And it's like, I don't know if I can continue to do this. And I don't jump in, but I had to jump in and say, can I say something to you? You're second. That means you continually book the rooms. Your gratitude, you need to check yourself. It's like, how many people can say that?
Yeah.
That they are second? It means that first is around the corner. Yep. And you're going to give up before the fucking magic happens, man. Be grateful.
Yeah, no. It is hard. And I spent a long time trying to balance the joy I got from telling someone yes against the pain I caused from telling 10 people no thank you, but maybe next time. And it's the hardest part about being a casting director is that and I don't often get to hear the agent or manager calling you on the phone and saying, "Hey, Richard, you booked it," and hearing you go, "Yeah," or I don't, but I have often been in touch with actors when they didn't get it and have had to swallow my part in that rejection.
It's part of what we do, and I have no sympathy for people who can't take it's not a rejection. It's just that it didn't work. This one didn't work. On to the next one. On to the next one. Process, pivot, and proceed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's so crucial and wonderful. You know, all the way back to the beginning of your career, you were involved with the blaxploitation films. I,
Hmm.
I had a great opportunity to work as a young bad actor in three tiny little parts in Macbeth when Ron O'Neill, Superfly,
Yeah,
played
right.
played Macbeth, and I played Fleance, the guy who comes and tells him that the forest is moving. And back then, I was lithe enough to. We had choreographed a backflip where he would lift me by my hips and put my feet flat against his chest and then throw me over his shoulder. And
Mm.
every night after the show, his wife, I think she was afraid I was the son of a lawyer, would come back to make sure I was okay. But it must have been interesting as hell as a black man to be part of that depiction of black men and that sexualization and all that kind of gorgeousness and it was very different than the sort of step and fetch it kind of roles that were available to black actors earlier than that. How was that? How was that for you?
Well, a little detail. Ron O'Neill played Gabe in No Place to Be Somebody, the very first thing that I did.
Uh-huh.
And that's where he became his claim to fame. And then he went on to play Superfly. And, but, wonderful actor. But it was like, again, going back to my first audition and really getting a reality about what the business is. And I knew that that was way the game was being played, and I wasn't about to take it personal, and I wasn't about to be at effect to it. So I never wanted to be in a position where found some of my friends and my brothers and sisters where it was, it was a real traumatic experience to have to go up for those kind of roles, and they walked away with a bitterness, like, yeah, man, if I was white, this would happen, and so forth, and and the white man and blah blah blah. I wasn't about to waste my time, you know being at effect of something that I could not change. And the way that I dealt with it was to create my own and to know that that had to be my journey. And that is still my journey today. I recall one audition that I went to when ABC was in Century City.
Yeah.
And it was for a big part, and it was for the lead in a series, guaranteed 22 and 22 episodes for those that don't know. And it came down to a chemistry read, and it was me and another black actor, and then I think they had three white actors, and you had to read with one and read with the other, and then the casting director came to me after I read with him. He said, "Man, God, they love you. They love you. Listen, this is going to be so great. 22 episodes. This is going to change your career and change your life. Just one thing. Um, they want you to be more black."
Yeah. I was just hoping you weren't going to say that.
And I said, "Really? Oh." I said, "You know what? Yeah, no, I can't do that." I said, "I cannot do that. And I know what you're asking me, but no." So if that's really what it is, thank you so much. Tell him I said thank you for the opportunity, and
Yeah.
I'm gone. And I walked out of there, and I had I mean, it was like I was so light because I knew that I wasn't going, I don't care how much money was involved. Money has never been a reason for me to do something, but I was walking away from probably a couple $1 million. It was a significant part, and the offer was substantial. But it was like, no, I'm not doing that because
Yeah.
I don't want to have to live with that the rest of my life.
No. Yeah.
And so that was
It's funny
easy.
because I don't think you could be too Catholic or too Protestant, or but I think you can be too Jewish or not Jewish enough, and you can be too black or not black enough, and
Yeah, yeah,
and especially with the presumption of the white establishment and the power people, if a black executive had come up to you and said something more sensitive about how to achieve the same result, you might have been receptive to it. But
well, yeah, because
for a white person to come up to you and tell you you're not black enough, and I was once in a room with a white director who said to a black actor, I need you to be more Connecticut, and I think he meant educated and
yeah,
articulate,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or whatever. And the guy said, the black actor said to him, "You mean New Haven?" Which is a very rough black neighborhood. You
Yeah.
know, I thought, well, you've got balls. That was good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that was one of the things, and this is where, as a black actor who survives the journey in Hollywood without getting that really easily uh, the jacket that they have and will put on you, which is like he's difficult to work with, is that you have to develop diplomacy.
Yeah.
Here's the definition of diplomacy is the ability to tell a person to go to hell in such a way that they look forward to the trip.
Yeah, exactly. And I just was thinking to myself, you know, uh, another actor's response to being told to black it up might have been to punch him in the mouth, which wouldn't have been a good idea, but would have been an entirely reasonable response.
Reasonable response, but there's such a small town.
Yeah.
When those acts of sometimes justifiable anger
Yeah.
is expressed in a really overt way, by 9 o'clock that night, most of Hollywood would know about it, because people pick up that phone and they make a phone call, and then pretty soon you are blacklisted without actually knowing it. It's not formal. It's an informal blacklisting. He's difficult to work with, and that right there is a fright. I mean, I don't know how many calls you've gotten where somebody says, yeah, I heard that he's difficult to work with.
Yeah,
how many times have you heard that?
Hey, we're on the verge of hiring so and so, and we heard when they worked with you that they were difficult to work with. Is that true? And I always thought, look, every circumstance is different. Why someone behaves the way they behave in a particular moment, isn't indelible, isn't permanent. But at the same time, I'm a great believer that you as an actor, you should be ready to give more than you expect to get, and that you should be building community and participating in community and collaboration.
Yeah.
And all of that is so very important to what we do. It takes a village, and finding out what role you play in the village, whether you're the garbage collector or the mayor, you still have an important role to play. And that brings me to another thing that I think I thought was really resonated out of the research that I got. It's funny because I thought I knew you, and then I got this document from our friend Trudy, and I thought, wow, holy shit. But you embody the concept that I care about deeply, which is being in service of the story. Whatever role you play in service of the story, and also in your teaching, being in service of these younger actors whose journey you're committing to. And where does that in service thing come from for you?
I think it probably, in terms of the images and the people that I was around, like my mother was always in service to people. As hard as she worked, there was always someone living with us. She was always helping someone. And then when I got into the business and other people, you know, Milton, in terms of how he would be in service of stuff. And even before Milton, when I went into the Army, you know, of being of service, that became so much about that, of
Yeah.
the people who were in my unit and the people who were in the community around me. And then when I ran the drug program, or was
Yeah.
part of a drug program, because of my own experience in being a recovering addict, that what I really understood was that my salvation was right through the door of service.
Yeah.
That
Great.
is the way that I could stay sober and clean, was by helping other people. And so in terms of my teaching, it is at the foundation of that, because what I understand is that I can't keep it unless I give it away.
Yeah.
And so it's my mission and it's my assignment. I mean, I accept my purpose in life as really my assignment. It was like I was assigned this, and I am a grateful servant to, you know, the reason why I act is so that I can serve many people in other ways. I'm
Yeah.
always looking to be in service of somebody being able to fulfill their dreams.
Yeah. Oh,
So it is,
gosh, Richard,
it's coming a lot from a lot of different sources, really.
I share that feeling with you so deeply and so personally. And there are a million other things I'd like to talk to you about, but that's such a wonderful, you referenced earlier your mentor, Milton Katselis, saying that wonderful stuff about you and to
Hmm.
you. I still can't read the foreword to my memoir that John Wells wrote without boo-hooing
Hmm.
all over the
Hmm.
floor.
Hmm.
I think our reward for being in service and being dedicated to collaboration and community is that appreciation that we
Yeah,
occasionally get and don't ask for. I'd like to
yeah.
conclude today's episode of Right for the Roll, the podcast, the way I always do. When I was a little boy, my mom, a very important person in my life, for obvious reasons, she used to play a game with me where she would say 3 words that tell me who you are. And I was a very brash little kid, and I said, I'm me, and I'm Johnny, and I'm a boy. I think I'd say something different now, but would Richard Lawson please play my mother's game and say 3 words that aren't complete, but give us a sense of who you are?
To be of service, to be present and wholehearted, and to see whose life I can touch today.
Wow, fabulous. Richard Lawson, thank you very much for joining us today on Right for the Roll, the podcast. And I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.